So taking it off its stand, you have a very large and in charge looking model kit. Because it is a 160 scale, it's going to be a lot larger than some of the other kits that I've reviewed. So surprisingly, it can stand up on its own, and I really am impressed by that. Again, I did say I was going to get the measurements, didn't I? So weight-wise, we're coming in at just 2 pounds. That is crazy. 32 ounces, 910 grams, 2 pounds. Standing in at, I'd say about, what, 13 inches? If we get it right there with the feet. Yeah, right about like 13 inches, call it. That is crazy. Let's take a look at the articulation that you'll find on the legs of the Monument Repair type. Now, on the feet, you will be able to have a peg for both the shin and the rear protectors, and they're also both on a hinge. So you can move them up and down slightly so you can adjust. You are on a peg, both not only in the ankle but on the foot, so you can shimmy, full 360. You can also move up, oh no, or down on your ankle. And you can still also get a pivot, or again, a swivel, I guess you can say. The leg, as you can see, has a double joint. You are able to also move the thigh, so you can see some movement here. Continues on for the rest of the leg. So you definitely are able to get some great articulation in the legs. And it is nice and tight. It's not stiff, which I'd like to point out, but it's nice and tight. Now the joints do plug in onto a hip. There is also, a rotating part here on a hinge, which your side skirts can either plug in on a peg on the side, which is also covered, but if you want to use a part separator to get it out, it'll be your friend. But yeah, you can either plug it in onto the peg, which isn't too bad, but again, will now be limited to its movement. It really doesn't move too much, because the moment you start trying to adjust, it'll fall off. And the ball joint onto it is also very tight, so do not be too surprised if you have to push it a little hard to get it nice and set. But it looks gorgeous once it's on there, so you can also do some other fun accessories and movement on it because it pulls down so you can see some more detail. Now, the leg without the side skirt can definitely kick out very well, and I love this. Not only that, the thigh can still also rotate very well. And what's also hidden is another hinge slightly above here that will give you some more articulation, I should say. And there is also your joint in between on the legs, which will give you some more articulation. As you start adjusting it helps when they're both down. You can move it up. And this gives you some more range, again, when you're getting to your articulation. If you want to do that superhero pose, because the leg is in a peg, when you do your superhero pose, you can kick it out to give you that extra little flat that you may need, so that way you don't have to see how it doesn't fit like other action figures and toys. So this is really cool. I love the articulation and the tightness that you're finding on the joints, as well as ball joint for the rear guards, which can move, and the front skirts can also, on a ball joint, swivel around, and these were very tight. I can now move that with one hand, but that's because I took them out and I sanded them down slightly using some Display sanding pads, and that did actually give me a little bit more comfortableness, so that way I can maneuver it now with one hand, whereas before probably would have broke. And then on your rear pegs, you can also add your rear boosters, which do have a little bit of some articulation on the hinge, and pushing in from the bottom, it's a lot easier to get them opened. So you have your boosters. With both on there, it does limit articulation, especially if you're kicking your legs back. But again, you're going to be keeping that in mind depending on how you're articulating your figure. But he's definitely got some boost in the back area, or the booty, you can say. Oh, and then also you have your connecting point to the stand, which you want to be careful. I only saw this type of peg to plug in, which would need to plug into this unit, as you see. But if you're not careful with some of the extra parts as I initially plugged in, this is a solid male piece. And yeah, this, I don't know where you're supposed to connect this into. Though on that note, we do have some other side accessories, which I'm sure can also connect somehow to the stand, but I don't know how you're supposed to use these. And it does not do a good job on informing you that this extra piece is what would go on the rear if you wanted there to be no kind of backpack for your unit. Actually, I think it goes like this. But again, normally you're going to have your backpack in there connected anyway, so nice. Accessory-wise, you also do have 3 pairs of hands. One set to hold and grip. One set to open your hand. And then a closed fist. For those 3 are all that you really get. Beam saber-wise are gigantic and big and sparkly. You can also see, let's see if that's a bad idea. Let's go with it right here. Maybe you can see some of that sparkle. I love it. Shield-wise, it does have a nice little hinge for the grabbing of the hand, as well as a hinge for the beam saber, which you can also, supposedly, are able to pull out, even though that's a little tight. And that's not bad. Now, I will actually say, I didn't mention this, on the beam saber tips themselves, I can take this out comfortably now, and I don't feel bad about the tightness that I have on here. But before these, I had to sand these. These are also a part that, number 2, I will mention, needed to be sanded down because I was scared I couldn't take them out as easily as that. And that would have affected some of the game, or the playability. Now, for the accessibility and articulation on your booster pack, I will say there is a lot of hinges going on here. So you've got a hinge on the back, hinge at its base, hinge at its connection, hinge here at the jet portion, and a hinge on the connection points for the back. So that's a lot. You've got a hinge here for the booster, which is pulled out, connected by a peg. Hinge on the wing. This part is nice because it connects and clicks in, which you can kind of get 2 clicks out of it. I think that's really nice. So fully extended, you can just push it back in, have it come slight. You have fully extended 2 boosters. The bottom one just pulls or closes in. Top one, again, closes as well. It's nice and snug. And there's really not much else articulation besides being able to, yeah, vertical and horizontal. And one other fun feature I will say that if I can get, you have the Ares Striker Pack. And that's, I love how you're able to see those details using the panel lining that I put on here. Nice little feature, hidden deet that you can see. And it's protected by the little clear plastic. So that, we do have to be careful about some pieces falling off though. For the rifle, I really enjoy this one because by itself it's already pretty large. You can extend the barrel to make it even bigger. The barrel itself can hinge out to make it look even more impressive. And right here, you'll see it opens up to show off the blue scanners. There is a hinge that allows you to pull it out so that way Thickgeese can grab it. There is a bit of some movement inside there as well if you like, but be careful because this part falls off pretty easy, but it just pegs right back in. One thing that's pretty cool is that this is also rotatable. So if you want to move it to the other side of the arm, it is interchangeable. And this part is all you have to take out if you want to close up that gap, which I think is really cool looking. So be careful though, depending on how this is opened, you can't have the shield rotated as such because it will interfere. Even though this part is connected and doesn't have any problem, you won't get a full extend. So keep that in mind. Also, parts sometimes will peg off, which you just need to get back together. Articulation in the upper body is pretty standard for a lot of the smaller kits that I've done. You do have some amazing articulation in the waist, where it can, as you can see, move forward from its upper chest, 1 and 2 movements on its lower back. So you do have some really great movement there, and since it can move side to side, that is very nice. Then you get up to the neck, which is cool. It has a portion that allows the neck here to go up a little bit and down, so you have a little bit of some range of movement when it gets just to the neck base. It can also move forward and back, and the ball joint that the head is on a hinge as well. So you do have a ton of articulation, which for all of the tall geese builders, you don't normally have that for the model kit. Butterfly joint can move forward and can go up and down. Be careful though, as you're maneuvering your butterfly joint, this inner piece can sometimes get removed, but it just slides right in. The shoulder unit itself is weird because it has like 2 floating parts. There's the unit for the shoulder and then what the shoulder armor connects to. So if you're trying to give yourself, that's the inner armor, but you can still move the, can I get it? The shoulder itself, which it's not that great for articulation. As you can see, there's a huge difference. But that's just going to maybe affect how you maneuver your arm, which is one of the parts that needed to be sanded because it was so tight. So shoulder-wise, though, it can still go 360, but be careful because as you maneuver your shoulder armor, it's going to get into the way as you rotate. Arm can, if you can get it careful, go out fully 90. Your bicep can 360. You have a very nice movement on the double bend for the elbow, and the elbow armor is also maneuverable. And a nice fun feature I also like is that the forearm can rotate, which is cool. You get more articulation. And with that, the wrist itself can also move and hinge. Then the wrist itself is in a peg, but it's fun though because the wrist itself can come out and you're still allowed a ton of range for your arms, depending on which way you're wanting to get your kit to look like. I mean, heck, you can make it look like he's trying to drink a cup of coffee. So lots of articulation. I love how it looks. On the unit right here, it can hinge, pegs in, hinges. This will hinge, this will rotate, and this will hinge. And so with also a rotation. So depending again on how you want to maneuver your shield, you are going to be able to do all sorts of movement with it. So that's one of the things I think is really amazing. Given the size of this kit, very impressed with its articulation. And its head's on a ball joint. So again, you can go up, down, left, right. There's no side to side, I will say, but you can go forward and back. Yeah.
As for size comparison, again, it's a very large model kit, coming in at 13 inches, which you'll see later, but you'll see how it stands next to some Transformers, high grades, master grades, some other third parties that I've done, Kotobukiya, and other model kits, my fave. And Also, oh, the Tianwei. Some past and future reviews that I've done. Transformers, weight-wise, it is coming in at a massive 7 pounds and 13.5 ounces. The size of the box was an impressive 23 inches across. Height-wise, quite tall at 16 inches, and it's got a depth of about 9 inches. Box comparison to other boxes. The rear will show you a nice idea of what the inner skeleton and articulation looks like, but we're going to go over that in the video. And you can see how massive it is taking it out of said box. Make sure you don't miss anything. The protected inside case.
Oh my god.
Well, let's just get into it. Again, impressed by the amount of runners that are inside, and they're one of those kinds of just rip-offs, so you don't need to cut.
This thing is huge.
Massive base. And again, a ton of the runners, some water decals, instruction booklet, as well as some corrections that we'll see for the instruction booklet later. So all of the runners laid out in front of you. And the detail that you'll see on the plastic is fantastic. One thing I do want to notate is that the plastic itself here doesn't feel cheap, and everything is undergated. And I'm not saying that in a bad or derogatory way. It's fantastic, to be honest with you, because it will not be any details left over that you cut it from these runners. There's a ton of them as well here. The molded in detail, that little heart is going to be a piece I will talk about a little bit later. And the pieces are huge. This is my first 160 grade scale model kit for the Gundam line. Impressive. One thing I was a little surprised at is that when looking and using the black light, I was expecting more of the white armor to pop, but it didn't. The yellow pieces did, as well as the red for the Mohawk and a bit of the light effect for the beam saber. Now, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, on the screen in here you can see how some of the clear pieces, the beam saber effects, the cloth and the orange, those ones are seen very well, like the Liger Zero. And another piece that I thought was pretty interesting, and I only saw this on this part, there was a bit of this molding plastic that wasn't flush. This does go into the base itself, didn't cause any problems, but I just thought it was like, huh, weird. But overall, all of the plastic pieces came in and fit fantastically. I will say about 3 other pieces I'm going to notate as we go through the review that did need to be sanded down a little bit, but all of it was fantastic. Looking at the pieces after it's been cut looks great. The panel lining is all that I did extra for the painting, and it was really mainly just on the white and gray parts, because there's a little bit of some color separation, so there's some nicer whites, some grays, and it looks fantastic. Now, a part that you're not going to get a big chance to see unless you're building it is the inside light that's missing. If you don't use the black light, that's like here, you won't be able to see that effect very cleanly. So there's no included head light piece, but if you can put one in there, like Metal Man X did on his stream, go and give him a follow, I can see why you would want to do this. And it's a cool little fun feature, you know, that little heart in the head for tall geese, or what I'm going to call thick geese. But overall, very cool, love that effect. No included light, but would look cool if you can put that in there. Now, where my thumb is right there is a challenging part when you were pushing it together. We'll get to that on the connection point, but that clear red and the white light, oh man, gorgeous. Now I will show off a bit more of that black light effect, and it should be on the light here with it in the light. So you can kind of see a bit of it pushed on there. Does push a bit of that detail. Yeah, kind of missed opportunity for a 160 grade in the price. But that is gorgeous. Now, here is an included piece that is also marked incorrectly. Here, it should be 12. It is 12 on the runner, but it should actually be the 14 microplastics. Now, again, fitting-wise, there wasn't any issues putting the model kit together on the chest neck. I will say there were some challenges on the shoulders, and those did need to be grinded down, but we did talk about that. This is a good example of the frame having some issues going through on the plastic. That part here needed to be grinded down because it could not fit into the flush part on the shoulder portion. But again, after some grinding and some cutting and some, finagling, we were able to get it inside. But putting it together was a treat. Where we do have that thumb portion, there is 2 color pieces you can change, but I'll show that maybe later. Now here. That pop is a no-go. No way do I want to be able to have it like that. I love how here you can take it out very easily, and this is a perfect example of what did I do to fix that. You can see one looks a little bit more cloudy, and that's because I used some of the display markers and the reciprocating grinder that I also picked up at Gundam to pick up a triangle pointed piece, adding in some grinding paper. You can just apply a little bit of some pressure, nothing too much, and clean it up as you go through. Start light and then move up on your grinding, or you just kind of work with whatever style yours.
Want to support the channel? Go to Gundam Show's store, and at the very top type in WILGUS Wilgus and support while you shop at the upcoming pre-order and sale items at the store. Building the kit piece by piece was a definite treat. Even though you did have some mismarkings, like it says 13 on here, but it's actually 12 on the actual unit, it's not a big deal. If you're paying attention, you will be fine. Everything was undergated. As I mentioned earlier, here's a very good example of all the extra little pieces that you can just clip off, which once you go through, and it does take a little bit of some time, which, speaking of, I will say this kit probably took me a little bit over 12, maybe 13 plus hours after having painted and cleaned up and did everything else. But all of that was enjoyable. Everything following the model kit instructions was fantastic. Now here at the waist, where you're doing the front skirts, you will see that I had ran into first off, one of the first problems where it was very challenging, and the rear skirts had some issues pushing them into each other. They were hard, they didn't get into each other flushly, so you had to make sure everything is cleaned well, and you'll be fine. But looking at it as I was building it through there, I enjoyed it. It looked gorgeous. Not really feeling that I was putting this together. Like, this was just great with the instructions. Follow it as you do. Take your time. And impressive. And you'll see your work as you're progressing through. A little bit of some cleaning with the panel lighting or some other painting that you're wanting to do. Again, you'll be able to enjoy that effort and that work. And oh, how does it look? Getting it into its poses, and something that I really was impressed was at the size of its hands, at the grip, at other things that it could do. And as you progress through each little chunk, it doesn't tell you which model kit runner you're going to need as you build, so that was a little frustrating. And I saw that a lot on Motor Nuclear. They will tell you what you need ahead of time, so you can save yourself some time. But after it's built, impressive. The Thickgeese is a very
new feeling for me when it gets to this grade, this scale, this size of model kit. I've never done anything this large before, oftentimes because I'm not a really big fan of what available 160 grades that are out there. A lot of them look too finicky and they're not in the style that I enjoy, and this has changed my mind on a few of them, so I may have to look into it, if not other future Ares Striker Pack. Little details on the kit that I thought were amazing. And it can hold my Sekiro Shadows Die Twice letter opener. I want you to see that. Also, shield opens up with some missiles. I didn't mention that earlier. But if you made it this far into the review, thank you again everyone for coming on down to the channel. Come for curiosity, stay for good times. I loved this kit, and I loved that you all got a chance to come and watch me build, hear me out, and check it out. We'll see you all next time.